Oh, damn it. Son of a bitch. Oh, sorry. I fucking conked my noggin. Um, I'm gonna unplug my phone. I have been trying to charge it. It finally just started charging, but it's charged quite a lot. The Roman pilum. I'm gonna show you a picture of Roman pilum. Um, it's one of those things that there's some physics involved that a lot of these historians they like to look at a lot of the ancient rubble and stuff like that, kind of imagine, how a lot of these things would work and so on and so forth. And a lot of the stuff they talk about with the pilum that are advantages, they're not that great of advantages until you really put in the physics of it as far as the human body goes and forward momentum. And that's something they go into as far as shield penetration, but they don't go into it as far as the fact that it's not your shield's weight that is containing the momentum going forward. Your body is what's planted and grounded and traveling forward. Therefore, the shield, what happens is, here's a pilum right here. I don't know how well it'll allow you to see it, but I'll see if it'll turn it sideways. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Well, uh, that's a pilum right there. I'm sorry about all the cracks. It's a large metal shaft on this side with kind of uh, it's very tip. It's a square tip that's a little bit bigger. If you look up a bodkin tip for arrows, it's very similar. The idea behind it was that there's a big long metal shaft, and as your shield, is coming forward, right? As your shield is coming forward and you throw this, it gets stuck in their shield. And this isn't sharpened. I'm sorry I didn't sharpen it before that. But, basically, here, we'll use one layer of this and I'll show you what I mean. Yep, cellophane is not as easy to tear through. If it's just the shield and the pilum goes through, it's meant to actually bend once it gets in. Now there's the ground here, and this is a big floppy end, and it's got a little bit of a spike at the very back end. So as you're running, that spike sticks in the ground. Now, two things that you want to remember about that. Let's say it only penetrates half a foot, which when they show the examples, they throw these things, they're usually standing still. Their opponent is usually standing still, and that's obviously not going to be the case in every situation. And also the way that the barbarians fought in most situations. But single combat was very important, and so was bum rushing. Now, the idea here, let's find something that I can pretend is the ground. This will work. Oh my god, it would have worked if I hadn't dumped over my chair. And we'll readjust the camera here just a little bit. So my hand is a dude, right? And he's holding onto a shield, right? Now as he's coming forward, this jabs into it, and it doesn't go through far enough to penetrate him. So you can see right here, it's not quite through far enough, but then it plants itself in the ground. It's got a spiked end, so it stays in the ground. It's going to push this through. Now, if he's holding on to it, because it is secured to his arm, he's actually holding on to a spindle in the center. I think it's called a pistol, but I'm not for certain. It's just a handle. And he can let go of his shield if he's Roman. But when you're talking about a lot of the Celtic shields, especially, they weren't necessarily held in the center. They were often held the same way as the Greeks were, whereas there's a handle on one part, and then there's the part that your elbow goes through. Those fell out of favor very quickly, though, because you'd grab a hold of them and twist them and literally twist somebody's arm off. I mean, if you wanted to keep on twisting. But the very first twist, I mean, just the weight of smacking it with a hammer on one side or the other, or a good solid battle axe, would literally break your arm. So that's why the Romans used the shield that was held in the center. But the pilum, when it goes through, the fact that your body is still traveling forward too when it stops means that your body is going to force itself with all of that weight onto that tip. And whenever they do these things where they show, oh well, this is what a pilum does. Oh, I expected it to do more. Oh well, it wouldn't even penetrate the body, but it got close and so on and so forth. And one thing you got to pay attention to is really the body is still moving forward at that point in time. People aren't able to just magically stop when you've got between 125 pounds, which is somebody who's small and not wearing any armor whatsoever. But 14-year-olds were on the battlefield and fighting right next to their fathers back in that day. So you got to consider, yeah, there are going to be people who are even littler than that. And then when you're talking about a fully equipped soldier with a heavy shield that's about 15 to 35 pounds, depending on whether it's a buckler or a larger. And then you're talking about the weight of the chainmail, and then you're talking about the weight of the gambit or the gambesol, or depending on where you're at, it could be called any number of names, but basically it's a bunch of fur in between two pieces of fabric that helps provide padding. It's also squished together enough that it'll also help to stop sword blows from going completely through, because the hair fibers will help to stop it. And the same thing with arrows, believe it or not. The fabric and the tightness of the stitch, the more tight your stitch is, the closer they are together, and they're stitched in rows, the closer the rows are together, the more compacted that hair is, and the more difficult it is to penetrate. So you're looking at, you could have a 170 pound to 200 pound person who's wearing easily 70 to 120 pounds worth of gear or equipment. And that's a lot of equipment going forward. I mean, at that point, if you're wearing chainmail, if you were wearing plate mail, that would help out. But if you're wearing chainmail, it's not going to deflect. It's going to form around when you go to push it. Let's say you've got a plate like this, like on the armor on a tank. It's at an angle. Well, we'll do it like this so you can see. If you hit it here, it's going to deflect downward, right? If that plate mail is coming off the side of my body and I hit it here, it's going to want to deflect that way, right? Well, when it's chainmail, what happens when you take a piece of fabric and you push on it? The fabric moves. It'll actually wrap around whatever it is that you're putting there. So basically what it's doing is it's forcing whatever it is that you're putting into it, that it stays right where it's at in the tip. And also, you've got the weight of that equipment. So at that point, the weight of actually using a chainmail is working against you. It'd be nice if you could just stop on a dime. It'd be nice if you were able to drive a Maserati 120 miles an hour down the road and you have a child who steps out in between two vehicles that you didn't see. And your sensors are able to tell, even though that kid just stepped out 3 feet from the front of your bumper, that vehicle is able to stop. But in reality, that vehicle is not going to be able to stop for a block and a half. And that's hopefully enough distance for that vehicle to stop safely. By that time, that child is already, well, you don't want to think about it, neither do I. A lot of the stuff that we're dealing with today, they had methods and materials to combat those things in the past, things that were very effective. But it's a matter of looking those things up, and it's also a matter of separating the stuff that kills people from the people that from the things that don't. I mean, I'd really, really rather follow the rules of war and the Geneva Convention, where instead of people shooting police officers, what they're doing instead is capturing these officers and processing them as prisoners of war. If they're processed as prisoners of war, if they're caught behind enemy lines again, they can be hung as spies. If I'm going to fight a war, I'm personally going to do it without killing anyone. And I would like for everyone else to be able to do the same. Yes, it's even more risky. It's even scarier because the people that you're trying to capture are trying to kill you. They're willing to shoot you in the head. They're willing to shoot you in the chest. But also, if you look at the National Guard, at several protests and demonstrations, they laid down their shields. They're not allowed to kneel. They can be put in Leavenworth, matter of fact, if they kneel. However, laying down their shields is acceptable. We need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. If our own soldiers are willing to stand up to Donald Trump, who is their boss, then the police can do the same. Then again, it's not the soldiers who are killing Americans. It's the police. And now Donald Trump wants to tell our soldiers to shoot Americans. Not a chance in fucking hell, homie. Y'all have a nice day.